I've got a little helper today. There she is. Just like good man, it used to be. There we are. Well, doing a concept today, a concept plan, and the idea of a concept plan, it allows the clients to change at any time. Now, I hand render these concept plans. I do them by pencil and I pen them in. Sometimes I leave them black and white, and then sometimes I colour them in. I do them on an A2, so if I do it at 1 to 50, it will allow me a little bit of space on the side, and Alison can actually take some notes down on the side, and it'll help me to quantify. Now, I just want to state that what I actually produce isn't a Renoir or a Van Gogh, or it's not that sort of end of the marketplace. But what it does, it gives the client an idea of where we want to go, or potentially. Got to use these days simply because everybody's eyes deteriorating. My eyes are over the last few years. Look, so what we have here, we'll give you their first names, Sarah and Ash. Obviously, we're not going to give the address. So I've gone on site and I've taken some measurements and overall measurements of the garden, and there's some detail on there, and they've told me what they want. They've explained the brief to me and what they're looking for, and but I've got to come up with some ideas. The thing about being a designer is that you've got to be creative. So as I was saying, no, I definitely need these. As I was saying, the idea about the concept is it allows me to quantify things better. When you're going out and you're taking notes, okay, that's absolutely fine. But if you're going to put it into a plan form, what it does, it enables you, and in this case Alison, it helps her to see what we're going to be building possibly. So the idea is that we come up with a concept, and a concept that it can be changed. So at any point, what I can actually do, I can pencil this in, I can go and see the client if I need to, I can send it on WhatsApp if I want to, if they want to have a look at it, and then they can make some amendments there and then I can make those changes accordingly. So, but what it allows me to do, it allows me to be a little bit more creative, okay? Because you know that there's going to be changes, because the fact is that partners will always be different in opinion to how they want the garden to be, and they think they're in tune with each other, but it's only when you start producing something. And for example, we had a project last week where the client wanted it very formal, okay, and very straight line, very linear, and the wife expressed that she'd like some very curvaceous shapes. So when I presented the initial plan, because the husband wanted it being very linear and very straight, and he didn't like it. And I think what it also allows is it enables the person to see things differently from what they realise what they actually like. So when I presented this long, linear, very boxy shape proposal, they didn't like it. So I come back with a very curvaceous, meandering shape and a few circles in it, and they liked it. And the thing is about the circles in a very small garden is that it made the garden look a little bit bigger and gave it a little bit more perspective. So when we go down this road of designing and coming up with a plan, a design, whatever it is, there's a few other considerations that you have to take into consideration, and they are the design principles. And you're going to say, well, what are design principles? Well, there's a few of them, and it's things like balance, proportion, scale, unity, cohesiveness, contrast, texture. So there's 7 of them. And you're going to say, well, balance. How does balance come into a design? Well, a balance comes into a design that you wouldn't necessarily have the whole garden paved. Some people will, but that wouldn't be good balance. You know, usually a patio area would consist of an area that could contain a seated area and allow you to get off that seat and to have some room around it. And then, so in theory, what you're looking at is 1/3, 2/3, 2/3 being the lawn, and then maybe a boundary around the garden. So that's when balance comes into it. And also balance comes into it when you look down at the bottom of a garden and you have a shed on one side or a garden room and there's nothing on the right hand side or left hand side. So by adding possibly a timber structure or even a tree or a shrub, and you get that vertical effect, that's going to give it again balance. So balance can come in very many various ways. It's so important to start to understand in some of the design principles, and just when you think that you've learned a lot about one of those design principles, it comes up and sort of bites you on the bum, and you start realising that there's other elements to balance, proportion, scale, or texture or contrast, whatever. So what I'm starting to do now is I'm trying to draw the boundaries in and get the boundaries in, get the, in this case there is a garage in the garden at a bit of a funny angle, and it's going to be a very simple little design, but nevertheless it's so important that we get it right or head in the right direction.
What started you out on this journey, John?
I wasn't ready for that, but I'll tell you, well, I don't know. I think it's that so important to carry on, to keep improving what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and I'm not sure whether I'm ready for this part of the business more intently than what I'm doing now. At present is that we go to site like a landscaper, but as a designer we're able to give the client lots of ideas and lots of inputs, because that's what they want. And you'll see a lot of landscapers going out and to price a job, and usually the conversation that ensues is they ask the customer what they want. But as a designer, you can make those suggestions because you understand a lot more probably about the customer than what they know about themselves, and that's what I was trying to touch upon. And usually we haven't been able to do it during this lockdown and this COVID-19, but usually when you go into somebody's property you're able to see a picture or some flooring, or there's something in the house that will just start ticking the boxes, and you'll start realising what they want and what they like. Sometimes they don't realise what they like, but I think for me to start doing the design is I enjoy it. It's possibly the road where I will want to go down at some point, and that's why I started doing it, because it's just adding another string to your bow, isn't it, with your business, isn't it?
Yeah, but we never used to do this, did we? Sort of when you started off, right at the very beginning, when you was a 17-year-old lad, where was that then? Where was you at then, at 17 years old? What was you doing? What was your journey then into landscaping?
I was young then, wasn't I? I'm not so young now, am I? That was a long time ago, and I think that with designers and landscapers, there's this practical side of things, isn't there? Where you want to be involved, the creativity side of things, and I think a lot of landscapers and a lot of designers are probably stifled a little bit in the classroom situation. So for me to be on site, and certainly for me, one of my greatest assets is that I love talking to people. I like listening to what they want, not just about me.
But now you're like a politician and you haven't answered my question. Where was you 17 years ago? Because I can remember, well, I didn't know you when you were 17.
Well, when I was 17, I decided to join the military, and that was a long time ago. And I started out as an apprentice carpenter, and because I was hands-on, always come from a hard-working back family. You wouldn't believe the journey that we've taken in, from a young kid, from the age of 3, working. I come from the countryside. I come from a little place near Rossendale, between Rossendale and Gloucester, a little place called Newent. And this town that was brought up, this little village market town rather, was that there was a lot about working on the farms and the land, and we was always working outdoors, even from the age of 3. You may feel that that's a little bit crazy, but that was the case, you know.
So move on to your times with John Norman. I know
Oh yeah. So
he taught you a lot with the civils and
Yeah.
the civil engineering side of it, which is where it all started, really.
Yeah, won't forget John. John, cracking guy, civil engineer, had a lot to do with land drain and civil side. So what I've done, I got out of the military, moved up to Essex, and I went working on site there. And I was working for a groundwork company called Brooks and Wood, and one of the main contractors for Brooks and Woods was a guy called John Norman, a real gentleman and very clever guy. And he basically took me under his wing and looked after me and gave me his little pickup truck, and he valued me, and that was a fact that, you know, that he wanted me to carry on working for him. I was a hard worker, I was creative, I was kind, I was caring, and that's the sort of people that he wanted around. So I ended up started doing on the weekends, as people would move in on this local development, is I ended up doing some patios, you know, those old, we call them dam busters, we won't call them the other name, but they were busters, those big 3x2 slabs. And at that time, I remember back in the 80s, there was a real sort of influx of a populace coming from London, moving up to North East Essex, and they had disposable income and they wanted to spend some money in the garden.
You learnt a lot, though, about ground and different principles then that you've taken into your landscaping during those times, didn't you?
Yeah, that's important. I think that's at the raw end, isn't it? You know, you start understanding the civil side of things, the road building and the road construction, segmental shaft sinking, even tunnelling. Then you get onto the curbing side of things, the civil side, and then you start going into the domestic side of the market. And
the drainage is...
Yeah, the drainage was so important, you know. I don't think that people realise that the importance of getting water away. I think a lot of the things that we're talking about is almost second nature. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves by structuring these videos to remind ourselves about where we've been and what we understand, because we can take it for granted, can't we?
That's what I'm getting at, is that because you've come from that background and you understand the makeup of the ground and the drainage and the substrates and all the different... I don't even know what the technical words are, but you understand that, whereas a lot of people will just go in and lay a patio. They don't know about the drainage, they don't know about the different horizons.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly seeing now what's happening during this lockdown period, that everybody's turned to landscaping because there's a real, everybody seems to be spending their money at home, and I think there's going to be a lot of patios and decking systems that's going to be built on pallets and God knows out there at the moment, and it's frightening to see. And I think that what you're going to have now, you're going to have a real influx of a lot of bad work going on out there at the moment.
Definitely. I think we've noticed that in the inquiries that we get, where people have started to do the project thinking that they can do it, and then they've just given up because they've realised there's a lot more to it. And I think understanding the drainage and the soil and everything underneath is so important.
Totally. And that's the thing about it, is that, you know, there is so much to know in this industry, and certainly with landscaping, there are so many multiple tasks that you have to think about when you're carrying out these projects. And what's happening at the moment, like I said, there's a real influx of everybody wanting to be a landscaper at the moment. And I think that what's going to happen, I think you're going to see a lot of problems being created at the moment, you know, because of bad work.
Definitely, I think so. I mean, we've seen it for ourselves, haven't we, with, you know, the amount of phone calls and inquiries we've had.
Yeah, but just the feedback that we have of customers when they say that they've had some work done. You see it all the time, you know. As you know, we run a landscape forum, so we see the information come pouring in on a regular basis, where contractors have gone in to put basically a botch up, really, and go in to put it right. And it's so sad, isn't it, when you think of like people that spend so much money creating a garden, only and they pay somebody to go and do it, and then they've got to pay somebody again to put it right, haven't they?
But I think that's what inspired you all those years ago when you first started doing the videos on YouTube. God, how long ago was that?
Well,
10, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
And you had a lot of flack for it in the beginning because you had landscapers contacting you and saying, you know, why you're doing this, you're showing the customers how to do it properly, and you know, you stuck with it because you said that, you know, it has to be done properly, and you needed to educate the consumer in this is how it should be done. And I think that's where we've gone today, is a lot of people contact you because they've seen your videos, they've seen you on YouTube, that you're doing this is how it should be done, or how to, and I think that's why you started doing the videos even before where we are today with all technology and things. 15 years ago you started doing videos of your work. What was to give people the education or the tools to realise this is how it should be done, this is the correct way of doing it. So when they got those other contractors going in that may not be covering the points that you cover when you go in, do you see where I'm going with it?
Yeah, this is being like a little bit like on question time at the moment, isn't it?
Well, no, I just tried to get that point.
Yeah, just no, you're right. The idea with doing the videos was to show people that we were really caring, I suppose, about what we were doing. It certainly wasn't about egos doing those videos, because if you look back, great doing the videos. I love talking on the videos, and I get a bit of a kick from it. Maybe that a little bit is about the ego, but the fact is, if you just give me a break a minute, the thing is, it was about producing something that somebody could see, and it gives them an option if they wanted to call us after they'd seen our work on a video. Now, if you look at the budgets we had those days in comparison to now, the work that we were producing now wasn't exactly show gardens, was it? You know, it was very simple.
No, totally different, wasn't it? Totally different.
Right. So what we'll do is I'll pencil all this in now. Then I start penning it in with a 0.1 or a 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 and a 0.8. So the more heavier the pen, so like a 0.8 will be the building, and then a 0.1 will be the plants and so on, and maybe the timber structure will be a 0.2 or 0.3. It all depends how you want to do it. Everybody has different styles. So what we'll do is I'll get this penciled in, and normally I'll go and speak to Alison, and I want her opinion. I won't always agree with her opinion, but you need that feedback, because there's just you, and you can get actually sidetracked in here when you're designing. Sometimes you need to get up and walk away. And I always have a tendency, and you would agree with this, is that I end up overcompensating, don't I, with colours and what have you. Yeah, without a doubt. Whether I use pencil or whether I use the marker ones, or whether I use pastel sometimes. I have known to use all three, and it's not good. So years ago what we used to do was to draw this out on tracing paper, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, on tracing paper, and that was fun.
There's a story there.
Yeah, there is a story there, and we'll tell the story in a sec. But you draw on tracing paper, you pen it in, and then what you would do then is that what we used to do, well, Alison would do it, is that she would print off all the words for all the various parts in the garden, the decking, the flower beds, the raised beds, the patio, the pergola, and then we would stick all those, we'd cut them all out, wouldn't we? Stick them out.
This was 20 years ago, I must say.
Yeah, but some people still use that method now, you know, and they would stick it all, we would stick it all on, and then we would take it to the printers, get it printed off into black and white. So you'd have a full scale drawing in black and white with the legend on the bottom with the customer's details. Maybe you would name and title the design, and what date it was, and the project, etc., etc. And then what we would do then, we would print off several copies, and some of those would be working drawings. So on that drawing we'd have another detailed drawing of possibly how the deck was going to be. For example, when we did the big pond with a 5.4 metre bridge with it, and you do the construction drawing and the detail underneath to one side, so that'd be another set of drawings. And it depends where your customer wants to go, isn't it? You know, if they want to pay for all that. And I think that definitely some customers need that, don't they? Because it's a little bit more clarity. It's okay turning up and saying to a customer, oh, we're going to put a nice meandering gravel path edged with a limestone edging brick or a Cotswold edging brick, and then those herbaceous borders and that raised bed, that's fine. And then you can do your quote, but
Some of them can't visualise it.
No, they can't visualise it. So this gives you a little bit more detail. And I know today a lot of guys use SketchUp, and well, I'm going to say, I was going to ask you then, why don't you think I use SketchUp? The reason I don't use SketchUp is because I need somebody to show me how to use it. Once somebody shows me how to use it, and then practice makes perfect. And I'm not saying that what I'm doing there is perfect, but I think the other side of this, and I think you'd agree with me, and I'm going to let you answer in a sec, is that I think this shows people how passionate you are about what you're doing, isn't it?
I think that, but I think you actually enjoy drawing, don't you? You enjoy.
It's better than shoveling, isn't it?
No, but you actually enjoy drawing. You find it relaxing. You enjoy it. Whereas if you're on a computer, you spend so much time on the computer with quotes and talking to people and all the rest of it. This is like a break from that, isn't it? It's different.
Yeah, it is. I think the thing is about
creative with your own hands. Then
then sort of like just pulling things in. I suppose, I don't know, but I think there are some SketchUp or some design package out there that does allow you to be a little bit more creative. So yeah, they have got a purpose. So anyway, we're digressing. So we get on, we come up with the idea, and we're always at that stage then, aren't we, when we've produced something and we like it and it's looking good, and then what happens? We send it on WhatsApp, and then I did it a little while ago, and the guy, we haven't heard no more of him, have we? And it wasn't because he didn't like it. He actually said he liked the design. That wasn't the thing. But we never took any payment for that at all, did we?
No.
And that's the thing. You've got to be really careful when you're coming up with your ideas, and in effect that this your ideas, it's your ownership, especially when you start titling things, and that's not fair when you've put a lot of work in. And some of these sort of basic designs can happen quite quick, can't they?
Yeah.
But sometimes we put a lot of work into it, and especially when people want planting plans, isn't it?
Well, it's soul destroying when you spend your Sunday, your only day off of the week, the only spare time that you have, doing these concept designs and ideas and giving all these thoughts to another person, and then they pass them on to another company.
And they do, and that's what happens. And there's always a danger of that. And that's one of the things that we were taught at Pershall, is probably not to give too many of your ideas away as a designer. But because we're building the gardens as well, we also have to give a little bit of input. So it's a bit of a tricky one, really.
But it's one that we are growing with, isn't it? And it's one that we are implementing things in place and putting things in place now that we don't do that process. So we will go and show them the design rather than, send it to them and things like that. Because we are...
That's a good point, because they'll say to us, can you send it over?
Yeah.
And I'll say,
no,
I won't send it over, because I want to explain my ideas about what I'm doing. I don't just want them to see a drawing without explaining my reasons behind it. And you know yourself, a little while ago I was sat here and I actually had a virtual appointment with a customer where I showed them the design, and it's gone. And we've seen it all too often where we've seen gardens being built after our design.
But we've lived and learned, haven't we? Which I think is the thing through all of this. And I think the important thing is when you design that concept is that you want the feedback from the customer as well, so you can explain your side of it, and then we listen to their feedback in that they may not like this element, they love that element, and how can we change this. So it's a journey in getting to the finished product. Yeah,
and that's I think that's the journey that you need to allow the customer to sort of get involved with, because that's the organic thing about having it to grow in the way it's doing. Because when you do that and you involve your client in that process, they feel a part of it themselves, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And that's important because it's their garden, they got to live with it. So.
Yeah, and you just got to let them have the veto to make those choices.
Definitely.
Oh, we're back. Well, trying to get on with this now. Ideas. You come up with some sort of ideas with this, and you start bringing it together, and I rub things out and so forth. But one of the biggest questions I get asked regularly, certainly on YouTube, and certainly on the landscaping group we run, is how much, and people always ask how much a square metre, how much a linear metre, because everything seems to get sold on the internet and in builders merchants at a linear meter, whether you're buying wood or whether you're buying paving, etc. And for me, that's fine if you're going to buy the product, but we have potential clients asking us how much we would charge for a patio, how much a square metre is going to be. Is that the way it works?
No.
No, it's not. And
there's so many factors.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Alison's saying, there are so many variables in when you're pricing something, and where do you start with the variables? One of the biggest considerations
access.
Access is massive. And just make sure I'm in frame there. No, access is massive. If you've got a difficult access, and it becomes, there's nothing wrong with using a wheelbarrow and pushing things down and getting things in, and a bit of a long journey. We've been on many jobs in the past where we've had to go down back lanes and
through people's houses.
Yeah.
There's no access at all.
Yeah, we've had customers, the next door neighbours actually allowed us access through their gardens as well.
Taking fences down.
Yeah, it can be difficult. If you can get good access, if you can get a good grab service over the fence where they can actually take your product away and they can actually put your product in, then you can reflect that in the price as well. So there's just too many variables, and different contractors will actually have different costs, won't they?
And, definitely.
They may have more people working for them, they may have more vehicles.
And I think the thing that we've learnt over the years is the consumer, they just think, oh, that's a patio. They don't think of the costs that go on behind the scenes, like insurances, accountants' fees, wear and tear on your vehicles, tools.
So what we're talking about now, we're talking about overheads, and we carry full public liability insurance should anything go wrong.
But even like with tools, porcelain, which is trending and very popular at the moment, the specialist equipment that you need, the saws, the blades that cost. You use more blades because the porcelain is so hard to cut. It's
I think
all
you should come and sit over here and do the vlog with me. No, what Alison's saying is that basically with the porcelain is that you need to cut it in a different way, because if you don't cut it with the right equipment, what's going to happen is it's just going to look a poor job. And
but it's all these costs that people just don't take into consideration, isn't it?
This is good. This is it. Come and sit down. Come and do the vlog.
No.
Yeah, but this is right. These are the things that they don't take in consideration. We're using that ruby saw at the moment. We use porcelain blades for cutting the porcelain. And if we've got circles and different shapes in the porcelain, is that we have to take our time and take care when we're doing it. And recently we did a job just before Christmas for some lovely customers, Veronica and Julian, and we can mention their names, can't we? Because we're not we didn't say where they were and their address, but they were really nice, and we had those little I think they were 100mm by 100mm little sets, and it was dissecting of that patio, that porcelain patio. That took some time, and I never actually charged any extra for that project.
And that's the thing, is the intricate detail, those cuts, those shapes that take the time to do.
Well, I'm going to have to get on with this in just a moment. So we've talked about some of the design principles, we've talked about the concept plan, how we go about it, and this is probably a lot of the work I've got in here. This is the last page I've actually got in this A2 pad, so we want to get on with this, we want to get this done today. So we've talked about some of the design principles, what is involved and what entails in a concept design, and the reason we do these concept designs, and we've also talked about the clients being involved in that process, because they want to be involved in that process, don't they? So I suppose the biggest question is what we've covered this a little bit about how much does a garden cost? Well, like we said, there are just too many variables about how we can give a definite answer to how much a garden costs. But what we can actually do, you can start breaking things down, because a client may possibly like sandstone as opposed to porcelain. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
It's all about products, which products, what type of product.
Yeah, so what we can do then, we can say, well, if you're having Indian riven sandstone, it's going to cost probably £18-20 a square metre, depending on where you get it from.
Yeah, absolutely. Right at £18, right up to 85, 90, £100. It varies so much in the quality of the products, and then that reflects in the customer's budget and what they want to spend on their garden.
Yeah, and again with porcelain, about what you can charge for porcelain. Now at the moment, right, because porcelain's having a big insurgent into this landscaping board at the moment, and there is a lot of porcelain from India and Turkey and Poland. How good is that porcelain? I'm not quite sure. The jury's still out on that one. But if you were going to buy porcelain, generally I would say Spanish and Italian porcelain is definitely the way forward, because usually that would have been full-bodied porcelain. It doesn't mean to say that the Spanish and Italians aren't producing bad porcelain, you know, people, but they are generally renowned for producing porcelain. They've been doing it for a long, long time. While we're on that subject, I suppose, is it's definitely a fact that they never believed that the porcelain was going to do as well as it is doing now. And the reason for that, one of the reasons is because India and places like Turkey has been on shutdown, and trying to get those products in from other countries is being difficult at the moment. So there's that part to it. So porcelain is popular at the moment. We were talking about design, we're digressing a little bit here now, but certainly the thing is with the porcelain, what it's going to do, it's going to look a little bit better for a lot longer in comparison to what sandstone does, because we live in a country with great precipitation. Things get wet and that sandstone does drag some of the dirt down, but then there's that other element, whether you seal your paving before you lay it as well.
It all depends on what you're trying to achieve with your garden as well, because I think porcelain is a lot more contemporary, modern, doesn't hold the water as long as it's laid correctly. And that's the thing, is that porcelain cannot be laid like sandstone. A lot of people then think about porcelain that is slippery. Well, no, if you've got the R11 rating on it, it is anti-slip. So there's all these factors that come into it.
Yeah, definitely, and this is what people have to think about. So that's the reason for doing these designs and these concepts, because you can give the information properly, as opposed to on the back of a crisp packet, producing a quote that way. And that's what I was going to say, that when we produce a quote, how do we deliver a quote? When we deliver a quote, you know, what does a customer get when they look at that quote or that estimate? But generally we give a quotation, don't we?
Yeah. Detail.
Yeah,
so we'll break down the area, the measurements, which products we're going to use, and it's all for the customer as well as for ourselves.
The attention is in the detail, isn't it?
Definitely.
And then that protects the consumer, and it also protects us as well, because everybody knows it's black and white, and we know
exactly where
we know the rules, don't we?
Yeah.
We know the rules. So if you're going down that road of commissioning a contractor to do some work for you,
make sure the detail is in the quote, and that is, you know, key to any quote. What product are they going to use? You know, whether they, you know, we've seen it so many times in, we're going to lay a natural stone patio, and as we just said, natural stone can range from £18 a square metre up to £100 a square metre. So what natural stone are they going to use? What porcelain?
Clarity, isn't it?
Definitely.
Clarity. You've just got to make sure you get some clarity in what you're doing. So look, there's so much to talk about. I want to continue with this theme again. Maybe we can touch on it again. We can touch on it at any time. If you've got any questions, don't forget, mind, subscribe to the channel, Greentop Landscapes, and just give us a thumbs up, and give a big thumbs up for Alison, because she's been an absolute dream today, putting up with me and my patience, because it's never always
lack of patience.
Yeah, lack of patience, but it's never easy, is it, filming these things, is it? And,
no,
and getting this information out, isn't it?
Sunday afternoon, I'm in the middle of cooking lunch. We need some downtime ourselves.
Yeah, but also we've got to remind the viewers that we're not necessarily getting paid to produce this film.
Don't get paid. A lot of people think we get paid for a lot of stuff, and I wish we did.
I wish we did get paid.
We do it out of, I don't know, the love.
Yeah, we enjoy what we're doing. Yeah, and we want to, we're still in the game, and we want to keep going with this. We want to keep going with the business that we're in, and we want to do it well. And by getting a bit of a look from the inside, a bit of a fly on the wall about what we are as a business, I think that the consumer will buy into us. And
I think that's been our key through our business in 33 years, is that we've always wanted to do right. We've always wanted to make sure the customer has the right information. I want to sleep at night knowing that we've done a good job.
Yeah, but what you were just saying there is we do care about what we do, and we don't want things to be wrong. But there's almost something quite satisfying when things that have gone wrong in the past, and they do happen, and they happen for a lot of people. But the good thing about when things do go wrong is that you've got an opportunity to put it right, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's important. Well, that's it. Vlog's over. I got to get on with this drawing. It's Sunday afternoon.
Cook Sunday lunch.
Yeah, we've got roast beef coming on. Next time we'll get Alison on the video and the vlog again. If you've got any questions, just drop us an email at info@greentoplandscapes.co.uk or give Alison a ring in the office on 01633896007. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter and even Facebook.